This week on the show, I share with you my recent experience of going all the way to Gabon, Africa, to get initiated into the Bwiti. So, what is the Bwiti? Who are the Bwitin? Why did I decide to do this? All questions I will answer in a hot minute on this episode. But to give you like a brief overview on what went down, 17 days, I stayed in a village. I also stayed in a couple other places. Most of it was in the village of my spiritual mother and spiritual father. And 3 ceremonies. And there's a lot of details that I'm holding in my heart out of respect. You know, personally, I'm not really like the whole like secrets, gatekeeping kind of person. But for them, this tradition, it's all passed down orally. There's nothing written down. And so it is deeply sacred to them. So out of respect, and I'm honoring the request to keep certain details secret. That being said, I absolutely will share what I'm allowed to share. And I will share, of course, the lesson, the wisdoms, the trials and tribulations, all the silly idiosyncratic, is that a word? Moments in between. So to give you a couple of highlights to look forward to, well, first off, I vibe with Gabonese people. They are so full of life, passionate, always singing, dancing, very touchy-feely in the best way possible. So just witnessing them and being around them brought so many lessons for me. I also really got to hone in on what is truly worthy of being precious within my life and within my spirituality. Within my big initiation ceremony, which included an exorbitant amount of iboga, I uncovered a lot of truths about my life, my relationships, and how I want to move forward in this life to come, which it continues to unfold. And the last thing I'll say is my very last ceremony, man, it was a kicker. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and it was only 24 hours. And just twice in those 24 hours, I reached a moment where I had 2 paths ahead of me. One path of just descending into darkness and rage, and another path of accessing my radiance. And if you want to know which one it is, you got to listen to find out. So I encourage you to listen with an open heart, open mind. And I'm really excited that you're here. If you want to learn more about iboga, Bwiti, this experience, maybe this is something that you think you may want to do, check out the show notes. You can find my contact information. Feel free to reach out. Instagram's probably the quickest way for me to get back to you. And yeah, that's it from me. So let's dive in. Welcome to the School of Whispers podcast. This is your host, Stephanie. I'm a licensed acupuncture physician and herbalist with a background in psychology, health sciences, and exercise physiology. Within my own spiritual awakening, I found myself learning pivotal lessons when I got myself to be in silence. Within that silence, the whispers came through. This is my sacred space of vulnerable storytelling where my guests and I share about the magic that comes from a life of following these whispers. I'm grateful you made it here, and I hope this show inspires you to live a life of following your own whispers. Let's get into the show. Hello, my friend. I am having such a big moment right now that I was like, I gotta share this with somebody. And so here we are, here you are. So just finished eating a pickle. I got my herbs cooking on the stove. I'm in the 3rd house I will be living in this year, not the last. And I just got divorced a little less than an hour ago. The judge at the end was like, "Congratulations, Miss Osborne, you are officially a single woman." And I was like, whoa. It was through Zoom. It was, which is totally the future. And what a time to be alive. If you have been following me on this journey, you know what a fucking heart-wrenching journey it has been to have this level of joy and radiance just coursing through me right now post divorce court hearing. You know, it's taken lifetimes and so much time in the swampy underworld of my feels to get here. And I'm not going to even go into that because we're here to talk about Africa. But if you are going through something like this, you're curious, whatever, let's start back at season 3, Whispers of Shame and Betrayal, because that's when I was right smack in the middle of all of it. And my ex, he sort of, I don't know if this term really like works, but like he turned into an addict, because like, what does that even mean, right? Because I know addiction is a symptom of something deeper underlying, but he got addicted to these drinks called Feel Free. They have kratom and kava in it. Kratom is an opiate. Feel Free is a horrific company because they have so many lawsuits out against them. If you just Google them or look them up on Reddit or TikTok, you're going to find a lot of truth, a lot of hard truths of people addicted and ruining their lives because of these drinks. And that's what my ex did. He threw it all away just for me to come back to loving myself. Isn't that so sweet of him to just lie and steal and betray me, gaslight me for years, just so I can be here. Okay, well, let's rewind a little bit. I've kind of had Africa fatigue because everybody wants to know about my trip, and I'm honestly kind of tired of talking about it. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, so that I can just be like, dear friend, please refer to this resource below. So Africa came into my field when I was doing iboga last June. It was actually, my ex was really into the idea, and I was like, fuck no. And it was, so I did an iboga ceremony with my friends Troy Valencia and Joely Trinidad. And Jo, she was 4 months, maybe 3 months pregnant at the time. And her trip was scheduled out for when she would be 4 or 5 months pregnant. And hearing that is what really helped me in that first ceremony, trust iboga. And what is iboga? Who are the Bwiti? For those of you who are brand new to the program, let me tell you, I've talked about what this is so many times on the show. So go back to those episodes. Oh, I'm only kidding. You're here with me. We got the time. Let me tell you. I want to start with the history. I want to start with how it all began. And this is just one of many inception stories of the Bwiti and iboga. And I am by no means an authority on this. I'm just a girl who happened to go there and do the whole thing. At least the initiation thing. So back in the day in Central Africa, it's Congo region, also, so which is like Central Africa, and then we have Central West Coast-ish, which is where I went to Gabon. That's a part of it, but if you're not well versed in the state of the world, like I usually am not, the Congo is in absolute disarray. So did not go to the Congo, but I did get to experience the beauty of the Congo jungle and the indigenous peoples, the pygmies of that region. And so it all started with them. This woman was cooking a porcupine that her husband had killed, and she's making a stew, and she's tasting the stew, and all of a sudden, she's starting to probably feel like she is losing her body and her mind. And I'm sure she maybe started seeing dead people. Her body may have started having little wiggles and shakes at certain points. And she had no ability to focus on anything except for what was being thrown at her by the the realm that walks between the space of life and death, existence and non-existence. This is just a hunch based off my experience, what she went through. I'm sure I picture her like ending up in bed and being like to her husband, like, why is your grandfather here? Why is he telling me these things? And why is my grandmother here? And just going through it. Next morning, I assume she woke up and felt amazing. Mind completely silent. And so her husband goes to the village chief and they track the porcupine and find that it had been killed near and burrowed to eat the roots of the iboga tree. And as men do, I don't know if they grabbed the roots itself or they got another porcupine to eat the roots. I'm not really sure at this point of really anything. And they served it to the village chief's wife. And lo and behold, she goes through a very similar experience. And all of a sudden, these women are opened up to the world of ultimate truth, because that's what they say that iboga is. It is the hunter of truth. And Bwiti translates to emancipation. The Bwiti to the Bwitin, which I've come to learn is the name of the people of this spiritual tradition. We could call it a cult too. I wouldn't call it a religion because, well, compared to a traditional religion here, there's no written doctrine or dogma. There are rules. There's a lot of rules. But from what I understand, they do not write anything down. It's all based on oral tradition. And why I hesitate also to call it a religion is kind of honestly similar to Judaism. It's a culture. It's almost like an ethnicity sort of situation. So whereas, sometimes if you know any Christians, it's kind of like they go to church and then that's where they're spiritual and religious. And then in their regular lives, they're just like a regular human. Whereas this is just, it's completely integrated within their entire lives. Like everything is sacred to these people. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But to go back to the Bwiti and the Bwitin, so to the Bwitin, the people of this tradition, the Bwiti is their end-all, be-all. It is their alpha, omega, their god and goddess, their darkness and light, their life and death, existence, non-existence. It is the Shiva Shakti. And so it embodies all of it. And actually, they see twins as the living embodiment of that duality. And if you weren't familiar with moi, I am a twin, so I got special privileges, which was pretty neat. But before I get into my experience, I want to continue on with the Bwiti here, because what's really important for me as I explain this experience, that I give respect and explanation where it is due. So we can look at the Bwiti as this complex, so as this greater source, sort of cosmic existence, but also it's the name for the complex society that originates from these two groups known as the Mitsogo or the Kapinzi, and from the province of Gabon. Province, I don't know if I'm going to even attempt to say it. We're not going to try to tell you what the province is, because that's a word I don't know how to say out loud. But the typical way that one would sort of describe the society of the Bwiti is a tree. So the roots are known as the Disumba. It's also known as like a mother branch, although it is described as exclusively masculine. It's interesting because what happened historically within the Bwiti was the men. It was rooted in women being the original initiates, right? And then the men were like, no, this is too strong. This is too powerful for them. We're going to take it on. And then they realized that it cannot exist without women. And so while there is a lot of this masculine energy of hierarchies and secrets and whatnot, it is rooted in the feminine, in women. And actually the branch of the Bwiti tree, so we got the Disumba, then as you move up the sort of the roots and the the trunk of the tree, we have the Misoko Ngonde, and then we have from off of Ngonde is the Mabundi rites, and those are predominantly only women. There are men in ceremony, and there was one ceremony where there were men involved, but typically there's 2 ceremonies where there are men involved, but typically it is like for women only, which is, it called my name. It felt very special to me. But the first time, again, I heard about Africa, I was like, oh, fuck no. Fast forward from June till October, Troy invited me to a retreat in Sedona, and he knew. He saw it coming, and I didn't. I thought I was going on this retreat to like get on board with being even more supportive and taking on like more abuse, basically, from having an addict spouse. And the abuse wasn't like, he was never like physically or verbally abusive. It was more abuse of lies and betrayal. And so on that retreat, I did 2 iboga ceremonies, and realized that he wasn't going to stop, and I had completely lost myself, and I would continue to lose myself if I didn't. It was really the question that Troy asked me. He said, listen, either, and I'm paraphrasing here, but either decision you choose is perfect because it's your choice and it's your karma and it's all perfect. But you just have to ask yourself, is this my purpose? Am I meant to wake up every day and put energy, all my energy, because really it is, he didn't say this, but when I heard your energy, I was like, it's all of my energy, because that's what it takes to live with an addict, to try to rise above the fucking gaping hole that is an addict. It's just take more. What can I take out of everyone so I can get off, so I can get my hit? And, I think addiction, it really is this one's inability to believe that you can handle your pain, the full extent of your pain. I that's what I see it as. The pain of existence. Maybe it's the pain of your trauma, but maybe it's the pure pain of existence, because I know for some souls, just that in itself is tough. But anyways, he asked me, is it your purpose to put your energy into rising above your beloved's addiction and staying with them and, helping them get through this? Or do you have a different purpose? And when he asked me that, I was like, that's so much energy. If that is my life sentence, oh my God, I'm living out my greatest fear. And I saw my true purpose, which is to be of service, to do the podcast, which I had like little to no energy to give, because it was just devastating, just finding out all the lies every freaking month and every night, waking up at 4 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m., and just my heart telling me, you're being lied to, you're being had. And I'm like gaslighting myself all night, like, no, it's fine. You're just traumatized from his past discretions, but there's nothing new. And then lo and behold, there was something new. There was always something. So many freaking secrets. And not a fan of secrets. And actually that's kind of, I'm going to be respectful of the Bwiti and what they've asked of me, which is to keep a lot of the ceremony secret. And there was some fear mongering involved, and I looked at my translator, and because they all speak French, and I asked her, is there a better way for you to translate this for me? Because fear doesn't work for me. I grew up Catholic. I am very well attuned to being indoctrinated and being fear mongered and all that jazz, and that doesn't work for me. If someone's trying to make me afraid to do something, then I'm likely gonna want to do it. Actually, brag here. Last night at 5 p.m., I was asked if I wanted to nude model for a figure drawing class, and that has been one of my dreams and greatest fears. And it was just an immediate full body yes. And the class started at 7 p.m. So I had 2 hours to just not think and just get into it, get in the zone, really. And so that's just me as a person. If I'm afraid, I'm going to do it. And so I have told my brain, the little rascal side of me, that we are not going to share certain details out of respect, not out of fear of curses, out of deep respect and reverence and gratitude. Because if it weren't for this tradition, I wouldn't have had this chance at a second chance of life. But yeah, cults just aren't really my thing. I never joined sororities I mean, peer pressure in itself in high school always put me off. I could never join a sorority situation because of all the hazing. And here I am finding myself in Africa being hazed, which I'll get to later. But I digress. What I had realized in that ceremony was that my soul wasn't put here with the purpose of rising above someone else's addiction. I am here to serve and to do my podcast, to do my Chinese medicine, to go to Africa. I had a vision and I saw myself. You see a lot of quote unquote future visions with iboga, and I take all of that with a grain of salt. But the one vision that absolutely played out in this real life is seeing myself in a temple, a firelit temple in Africa. And so I followed that vision, and there were so many points where I wasn't sure if it was even going to happen, even when I was like deep in organizing and talks. And Jo, she did such a great job in helping us organize everything and getting there. And the two women that I went with, I'm just so grateful because, God, getting to Africa is a freaking chore with all the pace. Like, I thought Hispanics were slow at getting shit done. Africans are even slower. They're like the original island time, like because of like being from the Caribbean, like with my ancestors and like being Cuban, like we're on island time, even in Florida, the peninsula that it is. And yeah, we got that from Africa. And so it's funny because I quickly realized within my first day, everything's so slow is because everyone's just shooting the shit and flirting with each other. And at first I was, I'm an American. We go next. We have to be, time is money and money is time. And that's a bunch of bullshit. And I quickly realized that sort of programming within me. So that was probably the biggest lesson. Well, the biggest first lesson that I ran into in Africa. But yeah, I remember Troy telling me that the goal of a lot of these initiators within the Bwiti, which I don't know the official term, but we can call them spiritual mothers and spiritual fathers. And they are the ones who are qualified to do certain rites, including initiation with banzis, which is what I was, a little baby, a banzi, within the Bwiti. So their goal, apparently, is to break the Western mind. And yeah, when I heard that, I was so terrified and fascinated with the idea. And as fearscapers do, I decided we're going to do this. So let's fast forward to the state I was in right before leaving. So I was, how do I want to say this? What level of insight do I want to give you into my experience? Well, I was dealing with a tough diagnosis about like a week before, and my period was late by like 12 days. And that if you're a woman with a period, you know exactly what that feels like. 12 days, like, come on, body, like just bursting with progesterone, hating everyone and everything. No, I really wasn't, but I definitely was freaking the fuck out and was just like, come on already. And that typically happens to me before going on a sort of plant ceremony experience. My period's always like, we're gonna be late and we're gonna make you shake in your boots a little bit. And then I also spoke with my ex for the first time in 6 months. And that night we signed our divorce papers right after we finished our call. And it was a great conversation. We laughed, we cried, said I love you at the end, and very much still, despite everything, I still have love for him. But despite, I just wasn't, I was in deep denial and not denial, because I was working on accepting everything he had done and feeling that pain, really allowing myself for months up into this point of July, allowing myself to process. But it was just so much shock that somebody who loved me so much could do such things behind my back to me and put me in such a way. Like, for example, I found out that he had taken out a loan in my name. So there's just all these things, and don't worry about me. I got it all sorted. I'm taking care of myself. I'm protecting myself at this point. And I'm not sharing this to put him in a bad light. I don't need to do that. I'm just sharing the truth. You know, whether you want to put him in whatever light you want to put him in, go for it. But if there's anything that this experience with him and also with Africa has shown me, is that you can't romanticize a person. And we are not all good, and we are not all bad, and we are whole and toothpaste free. If you listen to my recent podcast with Troy, that is my favorite quote from his book, that the toothpaste, when we look in the mirror, we see toothpaste on our reflection. We spend so much of our lives believing that the toothpaste is on our face. And so we try to rub the shit out of our face. I gotta heal it, gotta fix it, gotta make it perfect, make it right. And when we realize that the toothpaste is not actually on our face, but it's on the reflection of ourselves, the perception, and all we need to do is wipe the mirror clean, then you heal yourself from healing. You actually kind of crack the code of this reality or absence of reality. And so I understand that with people who have done me dirty, they are whole and toothpaste free, and I don't have to condone the action. I can actually reveal the truth. And that doesn't mean, I used to believe that if I acknowledged the truth, then that would mean I would hate them, and I can't hate this person, because, you know, really as like a self-preservation, what good does hating somebody do in our lives? So I've just come to learn that I don't have to condone the action. I can acknowledge and accept, and I can still have love for the true essence of the person. And so if you haven't picked up what I'm putting down here, is I'm not really going to go too deep into detail of what Africa was. I'm here to share the lessons. So let's quickly though, let's get to, so that's the state I was in flying to Africa. Getting to Africa was a fucking nightmare. Getting home from Africa was a fucking nightmare, because Africans tend to be late with everything, and French people like to protest everything. And so just flying Air France, going to Africa, it was a ceremony in itself. That was really the only fear I ever felt during the whole experience. And you have to go into the experience. If you're going to do this, you have to go in completely surrendering your culture and your idea of what is right and what is wrong. Because there were things that happened that, like when I told my family about it, they were not okay with it. They were upset about certain things because they were looking at it from the lens of their culture. But because I came in surrendering my cultural lens, you just roll with it. You just roll with every step. You have no idea what's coming next. The big theme of the trip was, what is going on? I have no idea. So we land in Africa. We spend 2 days in Libreville. We go to the Bwiti market, and I love, my friend was like, so you're telling me you went to the Emancipation Market in Freeville, because Libreville translates to Freeville and Bwiti translates to emancipation, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's what I did. So we get to the village, and what's really typical in a village where there is a spiritual mother and a spiritual father is there's going to be a ton of children, nieces and nephews, grandchildren, children from neighboring villages. There's just children everywhere. And that was one of my favorite pieces of it and one of the most powerful lessons all the way through, because these kids run the show. We've got kids from the age of 2 to 19. They are cooking, they are cleaning, they are taking care of each other, they are playing. The way that they go about and exist is just so fluid and pure. They have real responsibilities. These children are wielding knives, changing diapers, soothing. I watched a 7-year-old, because in ceremony one day there was a little baby crying, and I saw like a 7-year-old go and grab that baby, because all the adults are busy with ceremony, and take care of that baby, soothe that baby, go and make sure the baby's diaper was changed, or maybe it needed new clothes, or maybe it needed to go sleep. Like, the children took care of each other. And what I also love about Africans in general is they are so affectionate, and not for the sake of like trying to get anything out of each other. It's just how they exist, with so much touch. Whereas like in America, if someone accidentally touches another, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or, oh my God, when I was flying home, I got used to the land of touch. And my flight attendant, I was flying Air France from Paris to New York, and I woke up from a nap and I lightly put my fingertip, I'm telling you, like fingertips on my flight attendant's arm, and he turned around and said, "Do not touch me." And I was like, oh, we're definitely not in Africa anymore. And so people are just leaning on each other constantly, and it literally and also metaphorically, it's a village. It is a village mentality. You have $5. Those $5 is going to be split between 15 people. You have a box of cookies, like everyone's going to take a bite of that cookie. And it's beautiful. It really is. And also I love that, like, they can sleep anywhere. There is just this lack of preciousness around everything. And I will get into that in a moment, because I want to go deeper into that, because that was another huge lesson. But like, the children can sleep under fluorescent lighting with drums and singing and talking and yelling going over. We were laughing, me and the American and the Brazilian woman that I traveled with, we were laughing at a few moments because they'd be like, "Go get so-and-so," and they would yell for them, and we were giggling, thinking, all right, in an American household, they would have picked up their phone in the kitchen to text somebody in their bedroom to let somebody know to come to dinner. So I just really loved that aspect of it, and just the whole aspect of community. I see now that in my life and so many lives of people I treat and just people in my cultural window of America where I live, that the priority for longevity is longevity and health and wellness. But now I'm realizing, what good is living long when you have no community, no one to touch, to hold, to be held, to live and to share this experience with? We think that the epitome of health is a perfect blood work, whereas for them, the epitome of living, of life, of radiance is living together and sharing in this together, to be singing and laughing and dancing. There is no repression in this culture. If they're upset, you know they're upset. They are passionate. And to a degree where I was like, fuck, I don't know about this. But it actually really made me appreciate my family, because we're the same way in so many ways. And I grew up thinking that, like, all this conflict, all this passion is well, you know, to a degree, I think it's important to speak to each other. Like, I don't like yelling. I grew up with a lot of yelling, and it wrecked my nervous system. And I thought that I needed to go and soothe my nervous system so deeply. I thought this whole experience was going to be like deeply soothing on my nervous system. No, I left freaking fried for a lot of reasons that I actually won't fully get into, but my intention to come to Africa was to become my version of the ultimate vessel of truth and love. So I'm going to share the truth, but from the lens of love. But stay on track stuff. So I realized that this culture of repression, of holding things in, not letting people know when, hey, like that didn't sit well with me. What are you even saying? But to speak with each other with respect, because I actually did experience communication that I did not find respectful, and I found to be a major red flag for me while I was in Africa. But I thought I had to soothe my nervous system to get to a place where I could open my capacity for conflict. But it turns out I needed to just bulldoze myself. I had to be like, Steph, this isn't childhood. We don't have to hide. We don't have to avoid and hide in bed and hope that nobody is going to yell at us. And we can actually speak up for ourselves now. And we don't have to stay in bed and hope it all goes away. We can leave bed, enter the room and say, hey, what the fuck is going on? Because everyone's fighting in French. And I had to figure out like, what is going on? And I had to bulldoze myself to the next stratosphere of opening my capacity for conflict. And now, like, I was recently faced with some conflict and like a low level of like gaslighting, bullying, being home. And I don't say that with any resentment. I say that with more of a, oh, this is how I grew up. And the people around me really relied on me being a pleaser and being a peacekeeper. And now that just doesn't matter to me at all anymore. And I can stand in the face of somebody telling me that they disagree with me and I'm wrong in their eyes. And I could hold the line because my priority is truth and integrity, not peacekeeping. So just to, lay the land of how we exist in the space, that's in a lot of ways how the Africans operate. So our second night in the village, they're like, yeah, big night tonight. You ready for an all-nighter? As we're finishing dinner. And I'm like, what? What? We're doing an all-nighter tonight? And you're telling me I've been in Africa for 4 days and you're telling me this now? What if I can't do it? And so there was a bit of a discussion on what if we couldn't stay up late. And the whole vibe, I really, because of the language barrier, learned to pick up on the vibe of people. Pause, I gotta check in on my herbs. Hold on. Okay, we're back. So I, you read the energy in the body language and the tone. And the whole tone for me was a bit like, yeah, you can go to sleep if you want. And a little bit like, oh, the Bonzies can't hang. And I was like, oh, fuck it. All right, we're doing this. We're going to stay up. And it was the most magical experience of my life. You feel like you've entered this new dimension, and the whole time I'm thinking, how is this real life? How is it that I have lived my entire life in Florida, living how I live, and this has never been an experience for me? In a way, like I almost felt like a loss, like a little bit of jealousy that I've never got to. Like going to church, maybe going to a sort of gospel-based Baptist church in the deep South maybe would be somewhat similar to this, but there's just no parallel. So to keep certain details reverent and secret, I will say that the women are on one side, the men are on another. The bench that we sit on all night from midnight till about and we took naps before. We took a nap before going into ceremony. Probably it took a 2 or 3 hour nap. And so we start at midnight and you're sitting on these wooden planks for hours and hours and hours. And Another wonderful lesson that I experienced was my capacity for physical and mental discomfort. Because, like, guys, my coccyx, my butthole was sore and probably bruised during those 4 days. Yes, 4 days of nightly ceremonies. And you're not allowed, you have to sit with a certain level of decorum and respect. And so if you don't reach that level of how you're supposed to sit, you'll be called out. So to the untrained eye, these ceremonies are completely chaotic and outrageous. And after a while, you realize that every single little thing they do, from the paint to the feathers to the bells, the shells, who's allowed to bang which drum, who's allowed to shake which shells, it's all very fine-tuned and has a specific purpose behind it. So everyone's singing in a different language, songs and prayers. You don't really know what they're saying, but you try. I try to, like, sing along, because why not? Like, there's a fire going. Everything about it was really set to put you into this trance state. So within this ceremony, they eat a bit of iboga and drink the tea. But the way that iboga interacts with somebody who's done it many times versus the first time, the first is a bit of like a shock to the system. And you go through, I realized I didn't even really explain what iboga is. So, all right, let's backtrack a little bit. So to go over this kind of quickly, if you're not familiar, and I'll leave in the show notes a link to a video that may help you understand a little better on what iboga does for the brain and the body. But iboga is the roots of a shrub that grows in Central and Western Africa. Man, there's just so much to say about it, but I'll just kind of highlight the things that really stand out to me. Let's start with a sort of neurological perspective. So 2 things that excite me about iboga is how it enhances myelination in the brain, so or rather regenerates myelination. So quick science lesson. We have neurons, right? And neurons send electrical impulses to each other to give information, like move your arm. And so electrical impulse sends from one neuron to another, and there's this pathway in between one to another. And on that pathway are these fatty sheaths called myelin sheaths. And so as we age, that sheath gets thinner. It's not as fatty. And what its purpose is to keep that electrical impulse not only within that pathway, to keep it from miswiring and misfiring, but also think of it's like a slippery substance. So it helps that information slip down the pathway quick. It helps enhance processing time within cognition and within just physiological movement and action. And so iboga, with the right diet, can help regenerate these myelin sheaths. And in the video I'll link, Troy explains it much better than I do, but it's the difference between reacting to something and responding to something. And then the other piece of it is how it enhances neuroplasticity. And I think that myelination also has this influence on the neuroplasticity of the brain, but also really it's these GDNF proteins that are responsible for neuron growth and repair, but brain recovery, regeneration. So when you work with iboga, it can bring these GDNF proteins that do all these wonderful things back to an all-time high. The highest it's probably ever been in most of our lives and will be is when we are infants. I think Troy said it was like after the age of 3 that they start to, we reach our all-time high, and then the GDNF proteins start to drop off. And then here comes iboga that just brings them to this all-time high. So for me, and from the spiritual aspect of it being the hunter of truth, I've opened myself up to this opportunity to face the truth, figure out which aspects of the truth are really just stories that I'm telling myself, face the fantasy within the story, and and then rewire. Who do I want to be? How do I want to operate? What is going on within this world? And I'll get into this not on this podcast another time, but I've realized that there's really nothing to change. It's just been all about remembering. There's not a thing I would change about myself. So that's the nutshell I'm going to put around iboga for the time being. So they eat iboga, but as a banzi, I'm an initiate. The first 2 nights do not eat any. So just stone cold sober within these ceremonies. So everyone's dancing at certain points. The men have their turn to dance towards the beginning. Then eventually the women do. And I mean, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And to pause and to just, I mean, the women are next level, but these men, I have to have a moment of appreciation for them. I freaking love, I don't know if it's Gabonese men or Bwiti men, but well, definitely the Bwiti men, because the level of expression and dedication to their spirituality is just like nothing I've seen before. And it's cool because, you know, they're not walking around feeling holier than thou. They're just regular guys. But in ceremony, they just transform, and you see them everyone gets exhausted, but they just keep going. It's the spirit, it's the dedication that keeps going. And then something to say I miss, they were so complimentary, but with no strings attached. If they think you're beautiful, they're going to tell you you're beautiful. I got like a few marriage proposals, but it was all just like in jest. Like everyone's always, like I mentioned before, everyone's always flirting with each other, but there's no sort of encroachment of personal boundaries of like, oh, I called you beautiful and you smiled. Now I can like stand closer to you and maybe like pant on you a little bit. Like there was just such a respect. And also just watching how they interact with each other, the children. I'm just in love with that kind of manhood and masculinity. So yeah, we just go up till sunrise. They had, I think the first night they had it, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure they had us dancing at one point, and it was just, like heaven on earth for me. And at the end in the morning, we're eating breakfast, like sweetbreads and whatnot. And I'm like, well, that was cool. Don't think I could do that again anytime soon. Oh, we're doing it tonight. Oh, and tomorrow. And then okay, we're going to be doing this for 4 days. Fuck. And so, yeah, you know, you just cope. You sleep during the day. It's not the easiest. I'm more of like sun up, I'm up kind of gal. So it's not the easiest for me to, I can nap. Sleeping's a superpower of mine, but it's not always easy. But eventually, you know, you got to do what you got to do. So I want to tap back into this sort of concept of preciousness, because that was a huge piece of one of the first lessons that was right in front of my face while I was there. So everything to them is precious. Like we at one point went to there's no running water, there's no electricity. They do have a generator that they use during the 4 ceremony days in the evening, like when it got really dark. That was it. They didn't, that's not their, using the generators for special occasions. That's not their norm. And they don't have a well. And so to get water, you take buckets down to the river. And at one point, because we were doing the dishes, my hands were kind of greasy. So I bent down to wash my hands in the river. And Axia, who the girl that was the woman, that she's 19, so like a girlish woman, who was taking us down the river, she was like, oh, no. We don't do that. We don't wash our hands in a sacred place. This is our sacred site. Their guides, they call them the genies. And also you're a foreigner. So you washing your hands here is a disrespect, but also it dilutes the power of the genies within this space. They live with this sacredness and reverence to the land, and yet they're also they don't have a trash system. So eventually they do clean up trash in the house, but during the day before they do like a big sweep, there's diapers and trash in the corner. The outhouse is 10 yards away from the main house. And in ceremony, they're using like, from what I saw, they're using like, some of the drums were a gasoline canister with a plastic stick that they were banging, and it was great sound. And so there's also this like, everything is precious and nothing is precious. They were drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, all within this container of a 4-day ceremony. All within our last ceremony too, they were drinking beer like the whole time. And meanwhile, I'm coming from this new age spiritual world where you have to be the perfect, clean vessel. Don't eat certain things because they're going to lower your vibration. Don't wear certain things because they'll lower your vibration. I would often feel like if I fucked around on Instagram, then bam, all of a sudden I'm way too human. I lost my spirituality, my preciousness. And there's just like this, everything's so fucking precious. And nothing is precious, right? And that's kind of how we treat our world, where we put the preciousness in is honestly in our supplements and our blood work, and in what car do we drive, and what sort of crystals, how expensive are the crystals on our altar, and is our drum this raw calf skin that we strung ourselves while on a retreat in like the Midwest or wherever in like South America. Like, it's the wrong things I've realized, at least in my world, I have put in a basket of preciousness. And the things I realize that are truly precious to me, my relationships, my truth, and the land, those things were kind of put on the back burner of preciousness. And I'm not trying to shit on anyone. I'm just saying, like, there's just been this huge realization of this world that I came from to come to Gabon, to come to Africa, and to be with the Bwiti, and this reorganization within my mind of this deculturalization, if I don't know if that's the word, decolonization, maybe we could call it that. And it's very precious. Fuck, I don't want to use the word precious. I'm using it too much, but it's just been a very special moment of realization. And as I mentioned that, because eventually I did do an exorbitant amount of iboga, which I'll get into in a moment here. But as I mentioned, with this enhancement of neuroplasticity with iboga, how that plays out in day to day is you just have these big epiphanies on very simple realizations and simple concepts. It's something that I can't describe to you because you have to experience it. But anyways, so let's fast forward a little bit. Second night of ceremony, before we did this smoke bath, which was really just delightful. And I was seeing like the forest behind the village was just, I've had a lot of quote unquote spooky things happen to me in my life. So I'm not afraid. I like the dark. I don't easily get spooked. That's what I'm trying to say. And that forest was teeming with spirits. Like I don't usually my connection with spirits and entities is more, I hear or feel like I receive sort of memories when my eyes are closed. But here it was like eyes opened. Oh, who's this woman in front of me? Blink my eyes. Oh, that was not a woman. And then the information came rushing in. Or, oh my gosh, there was one time. This was post ceremony. This was in our closing ceremony. So this was post eating iboga. This was 24 hours after my big initiation. At one point because I didn't like to go inside the outhouse. If I just had to pee, so I would just, especially if it was dark out, I would just turn off my light and hope nobody came around and just pee on the outside of the outhouse. And emerging from the forest, I see this man with a goat, and I blink, and the man's no longer there, and the goat's there, and I'm like blinking, like, is the goat real? So yeah, it was just like very strong, potent spiritual activity going on there. And that's what happens when you live within this lens, this indigenous lens of sacredness within everything. Like, the spirit is not separate from the human. And I know we know that, but I guess for me, I've been able to experience that during and in post ceremony. So that went down. And then the next day was, we got to go to bed early that night because next day was a big day for us Banzis. It was our initiation. And so started with the flower bath, and a little funny anecdote, just like along the theme of, I really just turned into a child of the adults will tell me what to do and when to do it. If they're like, yeah, so we're going to be doing this in the next hour, so get ready. It's after a while I realized, because it'd be like 2-3 hours later, oh, are we still doing this thing? Actually, we're going to be doing it tomorrow, or just sit tight, we'll do it soon. It's like, it reminds me of childhood, where you know that nothing's going to happen until the adults tell you it's happening, put your shoes on, we're going, or take your shoes off, we're going. And that's really how it went. And a funny anecdote is, after the spiritual bath, they're like, okay, you come over here, walk over here, and you never look back. Never look back. And this is your new future. This is your new life moving ahead. All right, Stephanie, can you come and walk over here? We're going to eat some iboga now, and you're standing in the wrong place. And they're calling me from behind. I'm looking out into the sunset, giggling like, new life for me and my ancestors, really, truly feeling that. And they're like, Steph, turn around. You got to walk over here. I'm like, is this a test? Kind of over my shoulder, like, are you sure? But you said don't look back. And they're like, what are you talking about? 70, come over here. You're wasting time. It's time to eat. So I'm like, I have to turn around and look back at the river where we had our bath. We are presented with a fuck ton of iboga. The most I've ever eaten is probably 7 to 8 grams. And we are within the first round. It's a plantain split in half with, fresh iboga, which is, I'm used to dried out iboga, washed down with water, no water present. We could wash it down with honey, and raw iboga is just 3 times as bitter as dried out. And the next day, one of the women, we were musing, I wonder how much iboga we ate. And I was like, enough to burn the roof of my mouth. And so after they have you eat that first, and they're like, big bites, and then a couple days later, they were like, you girls were wild. We didn't expect you to actually eat the whole thing. And we were like, we didn't know we didn't have the choice but to eat the whole thing. And just scoop after scoop after scoop of more iboga, to the point where I got sicker than I have ever been with iboga. And they had told us no throwing up. And eventually we were allowed to throw up. But I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm not allowed to throw up. I might shit my pants then if I'm not allowed to throw up. But if I don't do either, I think I might pass out. And at one point thinking, okay, well, negotiating with myself, like, okay, maybe we can say we have to go poop, and when we go outside of the temple, we can throw up and we won't get fined, and we won't like throw up in front of the elders. And so I'm like, I have to go. And I'm like deep into this deep processing of this ancestral karma that I really want to touch on, because I think it's universal in a lot of ways. But I have experienced some sexual abuse as a child that I've recently, in the past 5 years, became aware of. And so I have this incredible vision of this angel. It looked like a deer covered in eyeballs all over. And its name was Enoch or Enoch. I'm not quite sure looking back. And it doesn't really matter that much. But the angel gave me just like, did you ever wonder what was the point of all of it? And I'm like, oh, we're going straight in. Okay, we're going into sexual abuse. Let's go. And the information I received was hatred of innocence. And we're still in the jungle at this point when this information comes in. And then I receive that and I don't quite understand. And we stand up and we walk into the temple, and it's just this whole intricate sort of dance that we do. And so I'm in cloud 9, like, I love this, giggling. And then I sit my ass back down and I get real sick and I unpack, what does hatred of innocence mean? So from a human level, I don't know why my abuser did what they did, but from this energetic ancestral level, I understand now that there was this transmission of a karma of guilt and shame fostering a hatred of one's own innocence, which in this respect means, all right, my chicken's ready. I don't know if you can hear it. But in this respect, innocence is synonymous to ignorance. And I just saw across my life, before I knew that there was even a perpetrator in my memory of abuse, because it was always in the back of my head, I had to understand that I had blamed myself for it for years. And I thought I was just this wretched, disgusting person. And I had to unpack that and let that go before even coming to Africa. And so I see how it just operates itself within my family, and how I get to be the last one within my lineage to really fully experience that. Hatred of one's own not knowing any better, one's own ignorance, innocence. As I move forward in the world and, awaken more to the Maya, to the illusion of life, you have to have a level of patience and love, of understanding, again, like the toothpaste is not on the person that you see who's fucking up all over the place. I mean, we all came here with the condition of forgetting, right? Like, we all came in here having no idea, screaming, naked, like, how do we get here? And I see now what a privilege it is to remember. Not all of us are meant to remember. So a lot of us are walking around super ignorant. It's all of our, in a lot of ways, first time here and just not knowing any better. And also there are some people who do know better who need to be held accountable. But there's wasting your time hating somebody for this condition that we are all born into. It's a waste of time. Can you cultivate patience and awareness and a deep wisdom that guilt and shame and shaming and guilting, it's a karma that I don't have to waste my time with anymore. So that was huge for me. So as I am sick as a dog and I see this, they're like, okay, do you see your abuser in your mind's eye? Yeah, I do. Good, now hit him. And I'm like, I don't want to hit them. And they're like, why not? And I go, well, because wouldn't that be perpetuating the cycle of all of that? And they're like, no. And I unpacked this over the series of, honestly, a couple of days. But I came to realize was me holding it in, was holding that karma inside and not allowing it to be completed. And like I mentioned before, you don't have to condone the action, and you can still love the person, the soul, and retaliating, being like, hey, that hurt. You hit me, I hit you back. That doesn't have to be out of hatred. It doesn't even have to be out of pure anger. It's out of a completion of the dharma, the karma here. And not everybody resonates with the word karma. So if you want, you can ad-lib whatever term works for you here. This is my story, my podcast. I'm going to use the words, the language that works for me. And so at one point, because I was like, well, I was raised Catholic, and while I don't resonate with Catholicism like at all anymore, I have been indoctrinated to be in this sort of like, be like Jesus. What would Jesus do? And I was taught, you want to be a good person, you want to be like Jesus, then turn the other cheek. And what they helped me realize is like, yeah, that's slave mentality. Oh, I get to hit you, and now good. Turn around so I can hit you again and stay down. Don't stand up for yourself. And they reminded me of, did you know that in the Bible it's also eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? Yeah, that was really big. So I also got to hit my ex-husband for the shit that went down between us. And yeah, and when I look back, like I said, like I'm listing what happened, but there's no like hatred and like vilifying, desire to vilify that's going on inside of me. My desire is just to like let go and be in alignment with what is true. And so that was really big. At one point too, a little funny anecdote here was when I decided, all right, we're going to go outside and we're going to poop. I stand up. They're like, are you sure? Like, I could tell they didn't want me to leave the temple, but I was like, yeah, I'm sure. I gotta go out there and go poop. So I stand up and I had this vision of myself tumbling across the floor. And this floor is like dirt, earth, stone floor. Like tumbling across it would have wrecked my knees. And I, see myself tumbling and then throwing all over myself. And from third person, I hear myself say in the most pathetic voice I have ever heard myself use in any sort of ceremonial capacity. Like to toot my own horn, I kind of hold the line with this sort of warrior energy when I'm in these situations. And then here I am, and I just hear myself say, I can't walk. And I just sit my ass back down. I'm like, fuck it. I don't care if I'm not allowed to throw up. Give me a bucket. And they're like, you can throw up. And I start spitting in the bucket. Then the girl next to me, she grabs the bucket and she starts vomiting in my bucket. So then I hold it a little bit longer, and I have this vision of my womb is on fire, a vision of this candle. And every vision you see, they tell you to say bukaye, and then you say what you see and what you're experiencing to the elders. And what was so special to me is they take every single thing you say very seriously. Yes, some of it is just like ridiculousness that comes with the mind, and with iboga, it just has like a very cheeky, silly nature to it, at least in my experience. But a lot of it is very important to the whole entire process. And so yeah, they told me I saw this candle with a baby's face in it. They're like, it's your child. And then I saw my child, and then I eventually threw up. And after throwing up, it went from like I did have that moment, guys, where I was like, you're in fucking Africa. You're not even allowed to hang your head heavy, because the decorum of the stance we're supposed to hold is just in ceremony when we're sober and regular other days, versus this initiation is the same. You can't drop your head. You can't like be slouched over and like all curled up in a ball. Like they gently but consistently, relentlessly push your head back up. Uncross yourself, open yourself, stay in receiving, keep shaking your rattle, and keep going. And so I'm like, oh my God, like here I am coming from iboga, doing a little bit of iboga in a scenario within a retreat. You're wearing an eye mask, you have a cozy blanket in a temperature controlled room with a mattress, and if you need anything, someone is right there for you to serve you. Whereas here, it's just none of that. And I'm like, I've eaten more iboga than I've ever had in my life. What is going to happen? What am I doing? And I saw that because I have a lot of experience within this world. I very easily was able to be like, no, we are not going down this rabbit hole. We are going to breathe, and we are going to make it through. And I breathed, I made it through, I threw up, and it became real fun. And so at one point I saw my family. I had this vision of my future of the man that I'm going to be with. And it's just this, I've done the whole like, oh, I love you so much, I gotta marry you because I can't live without you. Like I did that whole thing, and it's very beautiful. When it was great, it was great. It was beautiful, and I love seeing people in my life marrying for this exact reason. And I've realized that that is not for me anymore. Yes, I will never settle for anything less than the highest love and partnership. But my purpose, if I will get married again, if my purpose in just like sacred partnership is now this shared mission of being here to serve. And I understand that now. It took me some time to unpack that, because when I first saw that, I just started crying. And so they're not very big on crying, which is very interesting. And again, like when I tell this to people, when they are listening from the lens of their culture, they're like, they make a little stank face, and then, they're like, I don't agree with that. And, I neither agree nor disagree. I think in a culture where there is a lot of repression, like a Western or American culture, I think crying is, in a colonized culture, really, crying is so important. It's such a great release. And in their culture where there's not a lot of repression, and Africa's a heavy place. The good is gorgeous, and the bad is fucking heavy. There is a strong duality within the realm of Africa. And so the land, the people, people have experienced things that me as this, like I see myself as like a Cocker Spaniel human. Like I am pampered, and I've like can exist with like fucking exorbitant amount of hair in my head, like this gorgeous fluffy mane. I don't have to edit myself in order to exist within extreme conditions. There is no war, there is no poverty in my immediate world. I am extremely privileged, and I don't feel bad about that at all. And I acknowledge that I am privileged. I am very fortunate to be born into the life I was born into. And in a world where there is not this level of privilege that I am accustomed to, the culture and what people have to do and how they get by and get through is very different. So they see tears as like, once you start, you can't stop. It is a wallowing in self-pity. And as I've unpacked this, because at one point when I started crying, when I saw this new partnership and this life that I'm going to maybe experience, again, take all future prophecies with a grain of salt. But yeah, I started crying, and this woman, Shati, who is just such an angel of a woman, she came over and held my hand and wiped my tears, and she was like, Steffi, you don't have to cry about this anymore. It's in the past. And, because they asked me, why are you crying? And I said, well, because I'm still grieving my marriage. And yeah, so she said, this is in the past. Here you are being shown this beautiful gift of a future. And what do you feel when you're in it? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of light. There's a lot of joy. Yes. Feel that joy. Feel that gratitude. Feel that light. Don't be stuck in the past. And so another huge lesson I've come to learn is I don't cry very easily as a person, just across my life. And yes, a lot of it is this self-indoctrination of like, crying makes me weak, and it's better to be stoic. And I realized it's not better to be stoic, but now I indoctrinated myself into this other story of you have to cry in order to get through it. If you want to get through and process grief, you gotta cry some tears. And if the tears aren't coming, then just think about things that are going to make you cry and watch movies. And I've just come to realize that that's just not really necessary. If I want to feel whatever it is that I'm labeling as grief, sadness, right? Because it's what even is that? But if I want to feel that heaviness, I don't have to cry for it to be complete and for it to be felt. And I've realized it's like this sort of emotional masturbation that I would go through of like trying to like get myself to cry. Like it's just not really that necessary. But like there was this one point in this other ceremony I did with them where I actually like experienced pain, and my emotional reaction to the pain was crying. And they were again like, please don't cry. And I was like, no, I'm not living in the past. I'm just feeling pain, and it hurts. Like it just really hurts. So I'm going to cry. Let me do my thing. So yes, that was that. And yeah, really the rest of ceremony was really fun. At one point, me and another woman, MJ, we got to just like talk and shoot the shit with each other and talk about like, why are we even here? And she's just channeling, and we're both like experiencing, like seeing energy. And at one point they take you from sort of the Bonzi side, as I would put it, at least, where we're deep in it, and then they're like, okay, you can come to the other side and do consultations. So they had us like consult other people, and it was just really wonderful and special and fun. And that was that. There's a lot more to it, but I don't really feel like sharing at the moment, and especially for the sake of time. But yeah, what a ride. And then the next day is our closing ceremony, and so the next day is we in the West, in sort of the retreat model, we call it Discovery Day. I don't really know what they call it, but we eventually take a warm bath with a bucket. I can't tell you how many times I've bathed naked in front of a lot of women who, again, there's no sort of traditional, like what I'm used to, a level of politeness. So they're just staring at you, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to wash my knees now. Enjoy the view here. And we're just all together in it. And if anything, last night when I was nude modeling for the figure drawing class, I realized this is no different from bathing in front of like 10 African women who are just, seeing all of it. And I just felt really unemotional about it. Really like, yeah, I've done this before. And I mean, nude model, like they were playing NWA and Kanye West. I'm just like trying not to tap my fingers and trying not to dance to the music, but singing along and thinking like, this is core memory here. But I digress. I'm back in Africa. I just finished my big initiation. I have my Discovery Day, which in the retreat model it's a very peaceful day, at least with Root and Wisdom, how I've experienced it. There's just like very low stimulation. You're out in nature. And here you have no choice but to be in nature. That's the living room of for the village. And I'm just surrounded by people. I actually gave an acupuncture treatment that day. At one point, I was laying under a tree talking to my spiritual mother and my translator, and 2 other people came in. There was just like this big, massive blowout fight that happened right in front of me. And I'm like, mind you, still a bonzi in a lot of ways. And I'm like, maybe if I curl up in a little ball, they'll catch on to my sleepy vibes, and then they'll get all sleepy, and then maybe they'll just stop fighting. It's just... There was just moments like that where I was like, yeah, this is different. This is different. And it was exactly what I needed. The conflict, the fighting in front of me, the tension points. It was those moments that rewired my system surprisingly in a lot of ways. And then we have our closing ceremony, which started from like, I don't know, midnight and ended at 12 p.m. and in the afternoon the next day. And from that point, we rested. We went to Lambarine to rest, and we went back to the village for our final ceremony, the Niembe, which was the hardest thing I have ever done. It's basically a hazing for what it is it's an initiation ceremony for African women. There's nothing spiritual about it. Yes, it's deeply spiritual, but there's no like sort of iboga psycho-spiritual aspect to it. I was sober the whole time. There were people drinking beer but for this sacred ceremony, but no, I couldn't even, like, they were encouraging me to drink coffee. They were like, this is we're about to go into war here, and they were like breakfast of soldiers, but I can't do the coffee thing. And it was for the best, because there were a lot of points where you just don't know what's coming next. So when they say rest, you rest. You try to like clonk yourself out. I dissociated so much during that whole experience. Yeah, it was basically a hazing. I'm not going to reveal a lot to you out of respect. And it was over in a day. I'm so grateful. It was supposed to be 3 days long. We were in and out real quick all night. I was like praying to the goddess, like, please. Like, there was one point we were in the forest, and I was like praying to the goddess, like, please let us go home soon, because we had to bring this specific item home and we couldn't find it. And so I'm like praying, and within 10 minutes the prayer is answered. And then deep in the middle of the night, same sort of prayer. And the goddess heard me. She listened. Next morning they were like, all right, you're done. But what I will say about this, when we finished, I asked about the design of it. It was, yeah, as I said, really challenging. It really strips you bare of a lot of just basic comforts. And when they explained this to me, and then I reflected on my experience, it totally clicked. And what they said was, and I'm absolutely paraphrasing and adding my own spin to this, because, mind you, remember, this is French being translated to me to English, and now, nearly a month later, I'm digesting it still. But basically, the world is a tough place. This planet is a challenging place to live. And Africa is also just, as I mentioned before, like just a hell of a challenging place to be and to live. And the people, the land, everything around you will at some point in your life try to take everything from you, whether it's your comforts or respect or a sense of knowing what's next or sleep, whatever. You'll be deprived. It's just how it goes, right? But when you sign up for something like this, like I signed up for the Nyembe, I literally paid to experience this hazing. And when you can remember that, I signed up for this. As a soul, I signed up for this. Then you have this knowing and this remembering that nobody can break your spirit. I chose this and you can't break me. Like, I had 2 points. One, it was later in the day. Oh my God, I was so mad. I was like, I'm gonna burn this fucking village down. I will not burn this village down. I love those people. But I was ready. I was ready for murder. I was raging. And then I had another point in the night where I just... I was at the edge of descending into a dark place. And both points I stopped myself and I was like, no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to spiral into this place. In fact, what I remember is one of the most important things, and I'm pretty sure I've said this on the podcast, but one of the most important things a woman can do is access her radiance when it feels absolutely impossible. And so that is exactly what I did. And what's really cool or validating is afterwards, one of my sisters who went through the hazing with me, she said, there was a few times where I was going dark, and Steph, your joy, your lightness, it helped bring me back. And then I remember one of the women said to me that I was glowing like a pregnant woman after that ceremony. And I was like, yeah, because I fucking dug deep. into an endless source, an unconditional source of essence. So to sum it all up, that was Africa. There's a lot I didn't share because of time, because of energy, and also out of respect. I will say this. Yes, there were moments where I really felt like I have done this before. I had this really special moment where it was like I felt like I completely jumped a timeline, and I looked down. We were doing this final blessing, and I just knew I had done this before. And I looked down at my hands, and I had to remember, like, oh, right, these are Stephanie's hands. It was just like another lifetime where, yeah, it was all fated. And as Stephanie, as this incarnation, I am a white woman from America coming into their world. And as I mentioned before, I came into this completely surrendering my culture, which also incorporates, morality, sense of right and wrong, and all those kinds of things. That being said, there were things that I disagreed with within their spirituality, their culture, their way of being, the rules in order to progress within the Bwiti. I didn't fully agree, and I wasn't there to change anyone's mind. I wasn't there to impose my opinion on anybody. But yeah, I am allowed to disagree too. I have the privilege of being a tourist in this world, and as much respect and reverence as I have, I am able to say, I don't know about that. I'm going to go home and I'm going to digest it and mull it over. And whether I choose to follow that rule or not is entirely up to me and my belief system. Another last thing I want to say is, if you are interested in doing this sort of experience, specifically at this village, I encourage you to reach out. And I won't stop, especially if somebody has this heart calling like I did. I would never stop anybody from doing this. However, I'm not going to, per se, recommend anyone go to this specific village just based off of some things that happened that I felt didn't match my level of integrity when it came to money and just being upfront and open and honest with certain things. For a lot of reasons, including the sake of time, I'm not going to get into that here. I also feel that this is a blip in my time, so things may change. This is part of the reason why I didn't mention any names. I think too that's important for people to create their own opinion, their own perspective. And also I'm aware that hundreds, if not maybe thousands of people will be listening to this podcast. And so I want to protect myself here as well. But yeah, big lesson in the arena of relationship dynamics for me. And that sort of piggybacks on this overriding theme that I've been learning over the past year, that you can't romanticize people. You can't create a fantasy and fill in the gaps and make assumptions about people because then that clouds your eyes from seeing the truth for what it is. And we are all whole and toothpaste free. So while I don't have to condone the action, I don't have to condemn or hate the person. I just have to keep my eyes clear and unclouded by fantasies. And that's all I really have to say about that. This sort of perspective, this experience I had where I did leave frustrated and had to work through a lot and process a lot. But this doesn't apply to everyone I met in the village. Absolutely not. I'm still very much in contact with a lot of people there and plan to stay in contact. And I have a lot of love for them. And I want to see them thrive. So yeah, that's about it for me about Africa. I'm sure there's plenty more to say. And I'm sure that there's a lot I could share about living on the other side of it. But that feels like a podcast for another day. So thank you so much for being here up to this point. If you want to show your support, rating, review, share, do the things to help this podcast grow. And feel free to reach out, especially if you're curious in iboga, the Bwiti, or taking part in this sort of experience, I will absolutely get back to you as soon as I get through this Africa fatigue. All right. Sending you my love, and I'll be feeling your energy next time I'm behind this mic.